Hello again, my friend, followers, and also channel members. Welcome back again to the BoomerangSimPilot channel. And today we are going to deep dive into the visual maneuvering or circling procedure in depth. And also today we are on board Airbus A321 airline into the beautiful city of Erzincan or Erzincan in great country of Turkey. We have a actually long video today because we are going to very accurate description, also limitation and procedure into circling approach and also visual maneuvers by many references from the different manuals which issued from the Airbus, ICAO, and also for operating the aircraft into the circling area. Okay, let's jump into the cockpit and have a look for this briefing, complete briefing, and going for do the approach in Lima Tango Charlie Delta Erzincan Aerodrome today. As you see, the aerodrome is surrounded with the high terrain. You can see the runway here. Right now we are at 13,500 feet based on QNH 1018 and entering the hold over Echo Romeo November VOR as published. First of all, let's go into the chart of the VOR A or Alpha or NDB Alpha based on chart 13-1 Erzincan, Turkey, Yildirim Bulut Airport, Lima Tango Charlie Delta. According to this procedure and also this airport, actually we have two procedures totally. The first one is for localizer Zulu runway 28 that we have some difficulties with this chart for going through the runway 10. The airport actually have two runways, runway 10 and runway 28. The main runway is runway 28, but today due to wind which is from 090 degrees 15 knots, we are unable to land at runway 28 due to aircraft limitation. But if I go for localizer Zulu runway 28, we have some items that we are unable and we have lots of difficulties to go through the circle to land procedure based on this instrument approach chart. The first one is the high circle to land MDA or minimum descent altitude, which is for our aircraft. Right now our approach speed is 140 and we are going for calculating and also going through the approach with the category Charlie for the our aircraft today. Actually, the circle to land minimum is 7,500 feet and the runway elevation for runway 28 is the airport elevation is 3,791, which is almost 3,800 feet. Actually, when we want to make a pattern from north of the airport or south of the airport, there is no limitation for direction to make a circle to land procedure for this airport. We are going to be about 3,700 feet above aerodrome level, which is very high, and we are unable to decrease the altitude below the MDA, which is 7,500 for Cat Charlie aircraft, due to some reasons that we will discuss later about these limitations. And also we have the circling area that based on this MDA we are going whenever do the time check for return back to the runway 10, we are going out of circling area, and that is second problem. The third problem is the actually minimum for missed approach climb gradient, which is almost based on this criteria. If we want a return back for going out of Echo Romeo November on radial 297, today the airport temperature is 30 degrees, and also the airport elevation is almost about 3,800 feet, and the performance is limited, but not a lot. In this case, in case of misapproach, we need a misapproach climb gradient of a minimum 5%, actually, if we are going for this procedure. I'm not eager to do this procedure according to these three items that I explained to you, and the next choice is we are going for VOR alpha or NDB alpha, which is today we are going for VOR alpha because the VOR and DME are operational based on this chart, and there is no limitation actually about the 5% for, because you see that there is a wide valley for the misapproach from runway 10 in the direction of east. It's a better choice today to do the misapproach procedure, but the main item is the VOR alpha procedure. We have some items. The first one is VOR alpha with no runway designator. It means that this procedure is published for two runways, runway 10 and runway 28. Which one is suitable for you? You can do this procedure for runway 10 and 28, but for runway 10 we have a note that it's a third note here. The first one is DME required, that the DME is available, and also the second note is procedure turn restricted to maximum 185 knots, that we will go for maximum speed of 180. I will explain due to what reason we will go to maximum speed of 180 instead of 185. And the third item is very important today for us, that a straight in not authorized for this published instrument approach procedure. It means if you leave the final fix of runway 10 or not runway 10 for this approach procedure, you have some restrictions and also limitations that you are not allowed to complete your approach with the straight in landing to runway 10. If we are going to the airport diagram, you see that the runway actually heading or course for runway 10 is 104 degrees, but the the final course for VOR alpha is 110 degrees. It means that there are 6 degrees difference between the final course and also runway direction of runway 10. The 6 degrees, it's not a lot, but the main cause that you are not allowed to go through the straight in approach, that you are not allowed for that, is at 5 mile, based on constraint, you should pass 9,000 feet. And actually this mileage, which is 5 mile, is between the 5 mile from the VOR and the minimum, which is located actually at VOR station. If we consider 1 mile from the runway threshold of runway 10 to VOR station, the distance will be almost 4 mile, roughly 4 mile. And you should descend from 9,000 feet to actually 3,800 feet, which is almost a very high angle for descent and very high rate. You should observe, and going through the high rate for descent to the runway or landing, that this high rate and steep approach will go you to the unstabilized criteria for landing on runway 10. Okay, actually, according to rules of thumb calculation, it will be almost about 1,300 feet per nautical mile down to runway threshold, which is impossible to going through that based on your aircraft, your airline standards, and also your SOP. Never you can do that from 9,000 feet down to runway of 3,800 feet. But we are going to definitions, and also I will show you 4 patterns that lead you and guide you whenever you are visual, that how you will go through the circling procedure based on these 4 actually patterns. Okay, we are going to have some notes from the PANS operation, which is in other name of ICAO document 8168. In chapter 6 we have lots of words for visual maneuvering or circling. But what is the purpose for visual maneuvering or circling? Actually, visual maneuvering or circling is a term used to describe the phase of flight after an instrument approach has been completed. It brings the aircraft into position for landing on a runway which is not suitably located for a straight-in approach. In example, one where the criteria for alignment or descent gradient cannot be met, which we talked already for runway 10 about the high descent angle and also 6 degrees offset from the runway, which made from the final course to the runway direction. The visual flight maneuver. A circling approach is a visual flight maneuver. Each circling situation is different because of variables such as runway layout, final approach track, wind velocity, and also meteorological condition. Therefore, there can be no single procedure designed that will cater for conducting a circling approach in every situation. I told you that we have 4 patterns to do and convert the final stage of an instrument approach, which is for 2-day VORA, into circling or circle to land procedure. The other item is after initial visual contact, the runway environment should be kept in sight while the aircraft is kept within the visual maneuvering area and not below the MDAH, which is minimum descent altitude or height for circling. The runway environment, including features such as a runway threshold or approach lighting aid or other marking identifiable with the runway. We are aware about this important note, and I will tell you during the circling procedure that how we will maintain the threshold of landing runway in sight when you are circling. The visual maneuvering area for a circling approach is determined by drawing arc center on each runway threshold and joining those arc with tangent lines. Figure 2.5-6-1. This figure is at the last page, which is here. Figure 2-5-6-1 that based on all runway threshold. This one, the second one, third one, and fourth. We have some reduces based on runway threshold, which are the landing runway threshold. Okay, but we do this radius here, as you see, for a flight plan, lateral revision, fix info. I put Lima Tango Charlie Delta runway 10 and NZ radius 4 mile. The radius for Cat Charlie based on PAN's operation and ICAO regulation is 4.2 nautical mile. But the MCDU of Airbus A320 for this page cannot accept any, for example, 0.2 for this nautical mile distance. And if I insert 4.2 here, you should that we see the radius 4 mile will observe and also introduce into the ND, which is this one. I put, if I increase the range, two radiuses. The first one is based on 2.5 mile for awareness about the minimum safe or sector altitude, and the second one is the 4.2 that I talked about a few seconds ago, that is circling area around the landing runway, which is runway 10. The next item, which is very important, is minimum descent altitude height. When the OCAH, obstacle clearance altitude or height, is established, an MDAH is also specified to allow for operational consideration. Pay attention more about these items. Descent below MDA or H should not be made until required visual reference has been established and can be maintained throughout the maneuver. The pilot has the landing threshold in sight all the way that you are circling, about the distance, about the timing, about the circling area. You have to observe the note Bravo here. The section B is the golden rule. All of these three, A, B, and C items are golden rule for circling approach, but the main is item B. The pilot has the landing threshold inside. It means we have to all the way during the circling procedure have the threshold of runway 10 inside, not runway 28, not aerodrome environment. Based on first, I Repeat again. Required visual reference has been established and can be maintained through the maneuver, which is terrain, which is runway environment, aerodrome environment, any man-made obstacle, and other things. The pilot has a landing threshold inside, and the required obstacle clearance can be maintained, and the aircraft is in a position to carry out the landing using normal rate of descent and angle of bank. We will go through the definition later and limitation about the normal rate of descent and also angle of bank. About the misapproach procedure while circling. If visual reference is lost while circling to land from an instrument approach, the missed approach specified for that particular procedure shall be followed. The transition from the visual circling maneuver to the missed approach should be initiated by a climbing turn. You have to all the way, if you are going from the circling to the go around or misapproach procedure, you have to turn toward the landing runway, toward the aerodrome with a climbing turn, not descending, not level off. Within the circling area toward the landing runway to return to the circling altitude or higher immediately, followed by interception and execution of the misapproach procedure. The indicated airspeed during this maneuver shall not exceed the maximum indicated airspeed associated with the visual maneuver. With the maximum indicated airspeed for Cat Charlie aircraft is 180. We will cover it later. And for this item, for the misapproach specification, I will go through the Airbus Safety First item, and we will cover how you have to go through the misapproach from a circling pattern. Going for the third page, and also the last items for the misapproach is the circling maneuver may be carried out by more than one direction. For this reason, different patterns are required to establish the aircraft on the prescribed misapproach course depending on its position at the time visual reference is lost. Don't worry about it. We will cover it, and I will explain more in depth about this paragraph later. But for visual maneuvering using prescribed track. Since visual maneuver with the prescribed track is intended for use where a specific terrain feature warrant such a procedure, the pilot should be familiar with the terrain and visual cues to use in weather condition above the aerodrome operating minimum prescribed for this procedure. We are later talking about the minimum visibility, and also today the visibility and ceiling is perfect. We do not have any limitation for do the circling procedure and maneuver today. This procedure is based on the aircraft speed category. That's a golden key again. This procedure is based on aircraft speed category. I told you that according to category Charlie, we should go through the circling with the maximum speed of 180 that we will cover later, the reference for that. It is published on a spatial chart on which that visual features are used to define the track or other characteristic feature near the track are shown. Note that in this procedure, navigation is primarily by visual reference, and any supplemental navigation information presented is advisory only, and the misapproach for the normal instrument procedure applies, but the prescribed track provides for maneuvering to allow for a go-round and to achieve a safe altitude or height thereafter. Okay, the last page is some I have one table and one figure. This figure is covered already, But for aircraft category Charlie, the obstacle clearance based on OCAH for visual maneuvering or circling approach is almost about 400 feet. Lowest obstacle clearance height above the aerodrome elevation will be around 600 feet, and the minimum visibility required for the procedure for the Cat Charlie aircraft will be almost 2 nautical mile or about 3.7 kilometer. It means 3,700 meters. Okay, let's go for the procedure from the and notes from the Flight Crew Technique Manual by Airbus. For the approach preparation, the flight crew performed the approach preparation before starting the descent, including tuning of the reference navets. They should include the following addition item in the FMS programming. Okay, we talked that the visual maneuvering or circling actually maneuver is based on the visual reference. But as an advisory, I put the VOR 1 and 2 to Echo Romeo November with the frequency 112.7, which is right now 8.5 miles from us, and also both ADF are set to Echo Romeo November with the frequency 430. Today the pilot flying is right seat pilot, and also I inserted the final course for the monitoring pilot, which is the left seat pilot 102. 102 is actually the missed approach radial. Climb on radial 102 for the missed approach, or 102 degrees from the NDB to 10,000 feet. The climbing turn right to VOR NDB at 13,500 feet and hold as published with aim bound to 64 degrees and left turn, and also for 1 minute because it's below 4,000 feet. Maxes with 185 knots, and according to our Cat Charlie we should maintain it until inbound VOR. Through the misapproach procedure we should going for a speed 185 because we are going to the misapproach procedure of this chart. We are not circling. During the circling procedure we are not allowed go for maximum speed of 185. We should at or below 180 knots. Okay, max speed 185 knot until inbound VOR. If unable to reach VOR NDB at 13,500 feet, proceed via radial 290, which is this radial, and or 290 degrees from the NDB to 13,000 feet, then turn left again toward the VOR or NDB and join the holding as published. Okay, as an advisory I inserted both VOR and NDB in the MCDU, and as you see here, and also for the preparation the approach speed today is 140. As you see, that's 139 right now. Okay, we have some other items that you should be observed, we should observe, and we will talk later. For the flight plan in lateral revision, enter a star instrument approach procedure, including the miss approach procedure for instrument approach that I put already. For the vertical revision, insert FS speed as a constraint at the final approach fix since the circling approach will be flown in configuration 3, landing gear down, and FS speed. Check altitude constraint. Okay, the FS speed today. Let's before put this constraint to the chart and identify where is the final approach fix for this approach. If we return back to the VOR alpha for Erzincan, you see that there is no actually Maltese cross here for identification of a final approach fix for this 2D approach. But we have a FMS identifier here with the Foxtrot 110, which is almost tell us that the final approach fix is already here, due to two reasons. The final fix, which is the identifier indicate, and the other reason is that we establish on a final course 110 here is the beginning of final course when we are established on. Okay, when we refer to the MCDU, the final fix of runway 10 is identified. Here with the Foxtrot 111 Alpha. This one is when we are going from the outbound to the final fix, but at 1000 feet, do the procedure turn, level of procedure turn from outbound 45 degrees to the track 335, then 180 to track 155, and join the final, and again reach the final fix runway 110. I should put our FS speed, which is right now 148 and 1000 feet. For the second Foxtrot 111 Alpha, which is here, and insert. Okay, for the first one I insert 185 and 1000 again here. Why 185 and why 1000? Because the procedure turn is restricted to maximum 185 knots. I inserted the 185 knots. The other one is we should descend from VOR, which is right now maintaining, and we are turning inbound to maintaining 13,500 feet actually based on QNH, and then descending to 1000 feet to 10-mile outbound. We do the level of procedure turn and return back at 1000 feet with a speed of 148, which is FS speed at final approach fix. Okay, and the other item that I should insert is okay, later on when we are preparing for leave the holding, you should reduce to a speed 185 because the restriction and limitation of the procedure, instrument approach procedure. Okay, we do that in lateral and vertical revision for flight plan page. For the secondary, when planning for circling approach, the landing runway will be inserted into the secondary flight plan. The crew will update the secondary flight plan as follows: secondary flight plan, then copy active, lateral revision on destination and insert landing runway, keep the flight plan discontinuity. It means going for secondary flight plan, copy active the primary flight plan, going for arrival, going down, just select the runway 10, no via, no star, and return again. That's complete. For the return, for the next item, when we are in circling and downwind leg, we will activate the secondary, and just we have the landing runway on ND because we do not insert any approach, any star and no via. Keep the flight plan discontinuity. Whenever we activated it, we will do that. And also, if we are going to do that, the center fix and also the 2SC pass is indicated here, are indicated here. Okay, for the next item, for approach briefing, the flight crew should perform the approach briefing with the additional item specific to the circling procedure. Circling minima as published on the approach chart or as per company operation manual. The today is 7,500 feet for the MDA for circling procedure, which is here for Cat Charlie aircraft 7,500 feet. But whenever that we are going through the circling procedure below the MDA edge and also activate the secondary flight plan, we do not insert any borrow over there as a minimum or MDA. Direction of circling. If restricted according to approach chart, an example, due to terrain, it is preferable that pilot flying should be on the same side as the direction of circling. An example, for circling to the left, pilot flying should be CM1. Today the CM2 is flying and we are all the way going through the right hand downwind, that the right hand seat pilot should be aware, and also the landing runway, terrain, aerodrome area, and also the landing runway threshold all the way inside. Technique to be used, in example, autopilot and auto thrust, glide path vector, and configuration. Action in case of loss of visual references. We will talk about these items and also the direction of circling later. As a second page, for the final instrument approach, the flight crew flies a stabilized approach at FS speed, which we are inserted the FS speed 148, configuration 3 and landing gear down. The flight crew can perform the landing checklist except the flaps for landing. They will check the configuration for landing during the final turn. If we are going to this approach plate, it means that when we do the procedure turn and return back to the final approach fix at 10 mile from the VOR, we should be at config 3, landing gear down and FS speed here. And we'll manage the procedure later when we are going to the southern part and also second downwind leg when we are assured for landing and config full, landing checklist completed, go for the landing and will be stabilized over 500 feet above aerodrome level. For the circling approach, there is a caution: the flight crew must conduct the flight within the circling area. It means 4.2 mile for the Cat Charlie aircraft based on ICAO regulation. The TERPS regulation is different from the ICAO. Today, the chart is based on PANS operation, and we are going for ICAO regulation for this item. 4.2 that we have it as a circle of 4 mile around the Lima Tango Charlie Delta runway 10, which is landing runway. Okay, the following can be used to assist the flight crew in the circling approach pattern. Selected mode with autopilot are recommended. Waypoint can be entered before the approach to assist the flight crew in the circling approach pattern. However, they must not fly this pattern with autopilot engaged in nav mode. A very important key today for us that we are not allowed for going through the latest part of the pattern with the autopilot engaged and also nav mode. The ND in ROSE mode with the low range can be used for situational awareness. In support to timing technique, the flight crew should initiate the base turn with the aircraft is approximately on the 45 degrees angle of the runway threshold, which is not our case today. The pattern for today circling is different from the 45 degrees angle. There is a note that the circling area which ensure obstacle clearance is based on a maximum speed of 180 knot for Cat Charlie aircraft. That's the importance that we should be observed and at or below 180 knot for Cat Charlie aircraft whenever circling around the aerodrome. We are not allowed to have a speed above 180. That's all about the increasing the radius of turn, about the observation of terrain, and about the design, the circling procedure for this type of aircraft based on 180 knot and also less than this speed. Maintaining FS speed during the circling procedure ensure that the aircraft remain within the safe circling area. At the circling MDAH, which is today 7,500 feet, at the latest perform a level off. At miss approach point, if the flight crew finds no visual reference, initiate a go round. For the next page, we have when a required condition for circling are satisfied, select track FPA, pre-select the track of 45 degrees, which is not our case today. At any time in the downwind leg, activate the secondary flight plan to display the landing runway and to take credit of the ground speed mini, which is GS mini function in final approach when managed speed is used. Nevertheless, the flight crew should avoid to early activation of the secondary flight plan in order to keep the miss approach procedure of the instrument approach within the FMS if a go around is necessary. That's a very important item that we should do the activation of secondary flight plan at the latest stage of the circling that we are going for landing purpose, and landing should be assured. When the aircraft is abeam the runway threshold, start the chrono. The time for abeam threshold to the beginning of the base turn depends on the height above touchdown, approximately 3 seconds per 100 feet. It means whenever, as same as today on the second downwind, we are going to maintain 1,500 feet AGL, which is almost 5,300 feet on the altimeter. We should observe about 45 seconds timing from the abeam of threshold. Disconnect the autopilot and remove the flight directors at the latest before starting the descent toward the runway. Keep the auto thrust on. To perform the final turn, initially maintain 250 degrees bank angle and maintain the altitude until the visual reference for the intended runway are distinctly visible and identifiable. Set the landing configuration when appropriate. It means full flap, but ensure early stabilization in final. When the aircraft is fully configured for landing, complete landing checklist. If at any time during the circling procedure the required visual reference are lost, the main objective is to climb and to leave the circling area into the miss approach of the initial instrument approach while remaining within the obstacle free area unless otherwise unless otherwise specified. And for the final item, when the secondary flight plan is activated, the go-around procedure in the FMS is associated with the landing runway and not with the instrument approach. Therefore, if visual reference are lost during the circling procedure, the flight crew should fly the go-around using the selected guidance. That's clear. I don't give you any other information for that. And as a last page, we have a pattern from the flight crew technique manual. This pattern, it's not our aim today, and we are not going for this pattern, but during this I have two mention item here for the actually the downwind leg. You should maintain the circling MDAH, which is 7,500, but you can descend below if due to three reasons and items that we covered already. The main one was the landing runway threshold. All the way during the circling should be inside that you can descend below the 7,500. And the other one is 3 seconds per 100 feet above the aerodrome level during circling. That when above the landing runway threshold, you should note the time for turning base for a landing, about the time and also distance. But as a last reference, I am going for the another item by Airbus that issued on 12 July 2011. The main item is from the introduction, the circling approach used to be frequent and normal part of the standard airline operation. Today, it is not flown as frequently and is no longer part of the recurrent training for everyone, but yet it remains a challenging maneuver. Circling maneuver is a challenging maneuver. You should observe all the condition, all the precautions, all the limitation, all the procedure very accurately to do the circling maneuver very well. For the circling approach rules, from the beginning of the level flight phase at or above the minimum descent altitude or MDAH, the instrument approach track determined by radio navigation H should be maintained until the pilot estimate that in all probability actually visual contact with the runway or runway environment will be maintained during the entire procedure. The pilot estimates that his aircraft is within the circling area, which is 4.2 miles from the threshold of landing runway for Cat Charlie aircraft, and also before commencing circling, and the pilot is able to determine his aircraft position in relation to the runway with the aid of external references. Okay, that's good. For the next page, we are going for this item that for Cat Charlie aircraft maneuvering speed is maximum 180 based on ICAO, and based on TERPS is 140. Today we are going through the ICAO limitation. The radius is 4.2 nautical mile. That I inserted 4.2, but the MCDU accept 4 nautical mile. Minimum visibility should be at least 1,600 meters, and minimum height above the aerodrome should be at least 500 feet. But as a next item, we talk about the timing, but we should fly in config 3 with the landing gear down and also FS speed that already covered. The pilot is able to determine his aircraft position in relation to the runway with the aid of the external references, and the navigate should be selected as an advisory. For the Other item we have to ask when we are circling, we ask from ourselves that once again all timing are approximate, and use the ND as a guide only for 20.5 nautical mile offset, position downwind, track downwind, abeam threshold, tailwind for timing, crosswind, train, and should be asked you all the way these questions when you are circling to the runway. For the selection of ND, we have to select the rose nav with the lowest range of 10, and you should fly at the final stage of the circling when you are on downwind, and you should observe that the runway indication on the end should be located at this 2.5 mile margin, which is here or here, depends on your right hand circuit or left hand circuit that you will be follow. And for the right side, I again check and select this setting, but maybe later for the instrument approach we will change this selection for the navigation display about the selection and about the range. Okay, we will ask ourselves these questions at the final stage of this approach, and also we have three patterns here. When the visual reference is lost, when you are on downwind, you can shoot going toward the landing runway and follow missed approach. If the missed approach initiation track is for example this side or this direction. If in a base 10 you lost your visual reference, you are allowed to go through toward the runway and return back for the missed approach track and also direction. And the other item is whenever you are, for example, visual reference is lost at the final stage, again you should turn toward the right or left, which side the train are less, and also return back for the missed approach. But what is the missed approach that we talked already? That we should whenever we missed our actually a ground reference, we should go through this missed approach procedure toward the actually radial 102 from the Echo Romeo November VOR, or 102 degrees to from the Echo Romeo November NDB. Okay, that's all, and the last item that very important is a standard circle to land is a visual approach. So do not use pilot waypoints or place bearing distance, which you pilot made manually, or you are not allowed to use nav mode, or you are not allowed to use autopilot below the circling minima. And also that's all for this briefing, and let's go for circling pattern. That is very important. We have two patterns that guide us from the last part of the instrument approach toward the circling area and landing runway. If we observe this instrument chart, at the part section of the instrument approach procedure on course 110 toward the runway 10. We are going to 9,000 feet at 5 mile, not lower altitude before 5 mile. But we are going to, after 5 mile, going for one of these 4 patterns that help us to going for runway 10. The first one, which is the upper right side, help the pilot to, with a shallow bank angle and also track change. Today our track change will be 6 degrees. This pattern helped the pilot to go for the straight-in approach and do the circling maneuver because of the high actually degrees between the final course and also landing runway. But today we have another limitation because a high descent rate from the 9,000 due to from the 9,000 down to the runway due to 4 mile distance between the these 2 points. It's a steep and we gonna to be unstabilized and is very dangerous for operation on board this aircraft. We are not allowed, and this pattern is forbidden today for us. The second on the left lower, on the right lower, is suitable when you are approaching the runway almost perpendicular to the runway. It's almost about 90 degrees to the runway, and make this pattern for any runway, this runway or for other runway. We are not approaching to the runway today at this angle, and this is forbidden for us also. From the left upper side, we have another procedure that Airbus in the FCTM talk about this procedure. But if we are going to this procedure, is suitable for landing on runway 28, not runway 10. Today, due to wind limitation, we are decide and going for a runway 10 for landing. This will guide the aircraft to runway 28, and it's not suitable for us again. The last chance is this complicated but easy, not too hard, but a little bit complicated pattern. Today, imagine this one, that you go from the one side of the airport, make a pattern from to other side, and finally land on your landing runway. Imagine this one, and let's go to the approach plate. Upon reaching 9,000 feet at 5 mile, we are clear for descent to 7,500 feet. We make a pattern from the north of the airport all the way. When we leave the final track and entering the circling procedure, should have the landing threshold of a runway 10 in sight. Make a pattern from the north, 7,500. If we be able to maintain the aerodrome, train, ground, and especially threshold runway 10 inside, we can descend below MDA of 7,500. In this case, with regarding to this man-made obstacle with altitudes 4,605, descending to 5,300, when passing abeam of threshold runway 28, make a wide turn for southern part of the aerodrome and make a other pattern from the south of the aerodrome, maintaining 5,300, abeam of threshold runway 10, time will be noted 3 seconds per 100 feet above the aerodrome elevation. and make another turn to landing runway. At this stage, we have all flap 3 landing gear down F speed. When landing, assure at the last part for landing in runway 10, select flaps full, landing checklist, and complete the landing, and should be stabilized at 500 feet AGL. Thank you very much for this briefing, and a few seconds later we are leaving the overhead of the airport and over VOR of Echo Romeo November based on this instrument approach chart VOR Alpha toward Erzincan Aerodrome. And today the pilot flying is a right hand seat and going for a selected procedure without nav engagement when leaving the Erzincan VOR. See you a few seconds later in the flight deck for initiation of the approach.